You doing all right? What's going on
Great.
down there?
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out what's going on with the season. We brought our kids back in waves. So we had a group of about 60 come back June 15th, get with a strength coach, start working out. And then, we're doing this all, by the book. All the guys get tested. We quarantine them for 14 days, masks while they're in the lifting groups. On the field, they have masks that they pull up if they're ever next to somebody. So, and then we brought another group of 40 in July 15th, quarantined them. And then we've started practicing, and we're like in that weird phase where we don't have helmets on, but we can use footballs. We can't go against each other, but it's like kind of a hybrid that the NCAA put together to allow coaches and players to start kind of getting back in shape. So I love my team. I feel great about the guys we have coming back. We added a couple studs, and we would love to play. But at the same time, I'm smart enough to know that this thing is beyond our control, and there's a lot of factors out there that you have to take into consideration. Like Mike, right now we don't use a locker room. To me, that's a petri dish. Yeah. So why would we have guys in a locker room? So fortunately for us is that about 95% of our kids are within 10 minutes of the complex. They come dressed, and just, they go home and shower, and then they bring back their loops in the afternoon. So we've been doing those kind of things. No meetings in person. Everything's Zoom calls. I don't even meet with my own staff in person unless I do it on the field. You just don't want to get guys in a situation where you're indoors and you get kind of on top of each other. So we've been playing this thing pretty much by the book, because I think the safety and health and well-being of our players comes first. And also, when this is over, your players will remember how you treated them. There's a trust issue that you will lose if you don't handle this the right way. And we're really conscious of making sure that, we're a family, we're a group, and we're in this thing together.
Yeah, because you're one of the only, maybe 5 conferences still in FCS that are going to be playing football or hope to. I know everything changes every single day, it seems like. But so tell me that. And then what about the school in general? Are kids going back to school? That's just a whole nother world. I mean, hello, it's the school, it's like.
We have 22,000 students going to be coming into Huntsville, Texas as of Friday. And our players are in a bubble right now. And obviously that bubble will be completely broken once we have 22,000 students on campus. So I think that's why the Big Ten dropped football today. I think they started to realize that the worst thing we could possibly do is start a season and stop a season. And that's what we're looking to do right now with, the levels that we're still at. The fact that we don't know how the community spread is going to happen once you get all these kids back on campus. I mean, we're trying a hybrid type of education where we're going to be doing some in person and some online. So we're trying to work that out. But at the same time, kids are kids. And the way I explained it to them is that, and you can go on Georgia Tech's website and actually get, their studies. You could take every county in America. And we took Walker County. And I said, okay, if you go out and interact with 25 people at something, wherever it may be, you have an 84% chance of coming in contact with someone who has the coronavirus. If you go out, 50 of you, there's 50 people that you're in contact with. There's a 97%. If you get in contact with 100 people, go to a pool party, you go to something, an outdoor bar or whatever, there's a 99.9% chance that you're going to come in contact with someone that has the coronavirus. I said, so it's a new normal. And we need to be leaders, and we need to make sure we're wearing our masks, and we're going to make sure that we're, not out there doing things that college kids do. I mean, this is a great place to have a pool party. It's a great place to have a pool party, but this is just not the year to be going to pool parties, So it's an interesting time, but I think it also is a time that you can develop a chemistry with your players. It's a time that you can develop a trust with your players. And I know our players really feel that we're doing everything by the book, and we're very conscious of their health and well-being first, and then winning ball games will happen.
Yeah, that's one thing I always loved about you, man. And we did this, we worked together for what, 10 years, me with the radio and you coaching there at Delaware. And I always seem to remember things that you've said over the years and the perspective that you had. I always know, even after like a loss, you would have something that you already came up with, like before the game was even over, because we talked to you in the press conference and then you'd use it for the week. And it was always about like an opportunity. It's like, yeah, you took it from like, yeah, this is a tough situation, but it's also a great situation. He also gives us an opportunity to do this, and I always love that, because it wasn't just like speak that you tried to make it like a positive. You really meant it. And I
Right.
think you gave the players that edge by going, no, you're going to believe it this way, and we're going to do it this way, and it's really going to happen. I'm not just saying this to you. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? So I like that.
Yeah, life's full of opportunities. And I think that's what college coaches, need to do when they interact with their 18 through 22-year-olds, is show them that life is full of opportunities. And, we all will have tremendous disappointment if we can't play this season. But at the same time, let's kind of look at it from a little different perspective. I have a lot of guys who have red shirts who would love to start grad school. I have a lot of guys who, want to get double majors. There's all sorts of opportunities now academically for them that wouldn't have been there normally because they were going to graduate. So, and I have some guys, because of the fact that, you couldn't really get out and work out. Like, someone said to me, well, Division III, those kids didn't come and work out all summer at the school. So how's it different? Well, back in the day, you could go to your high school weight room. That high school weight room was closed now. Back in the day, you could go to the local gym. That local gym was closed now. Back in the day, you could go to the park and run. Now, sometimes, one of my players is from Brooklyn, and he couldn't leave, his apartment unless he was going to get into the grocery store. And so for 3 months, he was kind of locked in that situation. So now it gives those guys an opportunity to work with a phenomenal strength coach. I mean, Mike, I have a phenomenal strength coach. Gives them an opportunity, if they are truly NFL caliber guys. Okay, now this gives you some time. And when I had that conversation with my leadership council, I have 4 or 5 guys who are probably NFL caliber guys, and I can see them going, yeah, wow, I get an extra 3 months or a year, whatever it's going to be, to get myself in the kind of shape that I wanted to be in going into my senior season. So I think you just have to be frank with them and honest with them. At the same time, I am definitely a glass half full guy, and kind of make them realize, there are some opportunities here.
Yeah. No, I mean, initially and still to this time right now, I feel the worst for the seniors of, like, say, high school, and then, even college too, like the seniors. So think about how special that senior year of high school was for you into your freshman year of college. Like, I know that was one of the best years of my life. I mean, I'm sure for you too. And the transition, you didn't get at the end of the senior year the way they expected. There's no graduation. And now what the heck's going to happen for your freshman year of college, with like not even actually going to class? I mean, I feel so bad for those people, right? And then, like you said, maybe some of the ones as a senior who is trying to get to the next level or trying to do something that doesn't get an extra year, they don't get the opportunity. So it's a tough one for those kids,
Yeah, the ones that I really feel the worst for are those high school juniors, now seniors, who are banking on this senior year to really show, hey, I'm a Division I player. Hey, I can play college football. Hey, I deserve the scholarship offer that you're going to give me. Now, all of a sudden, those guys are really nervous. And what we have found is recruiting hasn't stopped. And, I've been in a lot of Zoom recruiting meetings with my staff, with players, and it's like, listen, it's a new normal. You might not be able to get on our campus because right now campuses are closed to recruiting. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to do a little bit more research. You're going to have to ask questions. You're going to have to see if there's anyone on our roster that possibly you could reach out to and say, hey, Coach Keeler seems like a great guy when I had my Zoom meeting with him, but can I knock on his door if I have something going on in my life? I mean, what kind of man is he going to be? Not just coach, what kind of man is he going to be? So, you really put a lot more onus back on those players and say, listen, this is hard, but it's doable. You have to put more research involved in this. It's not just go look at a campus and say, hey, I like the stadium. No, this is going and doing some more research. The other thing that I think is going to help us a lot is that we have probably the greatest location in America for, university to be in terms of high school football. I mean, we're right on the verge of East Texas. And so we're right on that corner there. And so you have tremendous Friday Night Lights is right there. And then Houston football is amazing. And Dallas football is incredible. And then football's gotten even better out towards, San Antonio and College Station and Austin and those areas. So, in a 4-hour radius, you're probably talking about the best high school football in America. And now players want to stay closer to home because of what's going on. It's tough to travel these days. And, if something does happen at home, I want to be able to get home. And so it's really been a big plus for us in terms of recruiting because, we have a great story to sell. 99 wins the last 10 years, 59 in my 6, 5 Final Fours. That means half of every season that we've started in the last decade at Sam Houston, we've gone to the Final Four. Me personally, in my career, 13 Final Fours in 26 years. 50% of every season I start go to the Final Four. And then, it's really kind of a unique place, Sam Houston, where when I got here, we had 15,000 students. We're at 22,000 students now. We're the 14th fastest growing university in America and the 5th fastest growing town in Texas. So we have a great story to tell. And I think players wanting to stay a little closer to home, that story is a little bit easier to tell. And it rings true because players are saying, you know what, bigger's not better, better's better. And we could be the best fit for them. So.
What an opportunity, man. I know we've had these talks, for years. Of course, you probably never knew even half of that stuff until you got down there and then look at it. It's worked out, pretty darn well. And you've kept your great coaching and kept it to the level that you expect it to be at. I think also too, like when you look at it that way, you're right. In terms of the recruiting is awesome. I mean, it's right there. I used to fly over Texas and you look down and you go, whoa, what stadium is that? It's like it's a high school stadium. There's like 30,000 seats there. Cause like, it looks very big, so, but it's pretty impressive. Yeah. So, I mean, and I'll go back to something you said, or you kind of vouched for years ago where you want to have guys get 5 years, just of eligibility to play football. Just give them 5 years. Like they got a little closer with your, the red shirt rule where you could play 4 games in a season at least, and it doesn't, use up a season. But
and that has come back up. It's interesting. I've read some things where people think they're reinventing the wheel, where it's like, why don't we just give them 5 years of eligibility? No red shirts. I'm like, I'm the guy who proposed that 15 years ago. But managing your roster, it's really part of being successful. And I think sometimes there's some really tough decisions you have to make when all of a sudden you're pulling a red shirt on a player 7 games into a season because you didn't realize you're going to have 3 running backs go down. Omar Cuff. Mm-hmm. We had to play Omar Cuff game 7 of his freshman year because we had, lost like 3 running backs. And so Omar Cuff basically didn't have a freshman year. He played like 5 or 6 games that season and lost really, a half a season. But that's just one example of a lot of kids who you don't plan on playing them late, but all of a sudden now they've changed that rule where, okay, it's late and you can play them 4 games late. It doesn't matter when in the time they play them. But I still go back to lot simpler. We just give them 5 years. That's how long it takes for them to graduate. Also, you can figure out an academic plan for those high academic kids. 5 years. Hey, we're halfway through grad school, or we got double major, or we're going to add 2 minors. Now you don't know that because you don't know what's going to happen with their academic eligibility compared to and tied in with their athletic eligibility. So it'd just be a lot easier for everybody. We just said 5 years of eligibility. Let's move on from there.
Okay, now let me ask you this. So if somebody tears their ACL in game 2 of their second season, now can they get a medical red shirt where they actually end up with 6 years? Or do you just say, well, no, sorry, that's one of your 5.
That's one of your 5. Yeah, because you used to get 4, now you're getting 5. That's kind of how I look at it, because you take all those little bit of like, well, he pulled a hamstring, we're going to count as a red shirt. I mean, you take all that out of there because there's a lot of massaging of how bad the injury really was. And now all that nonsense is gone. Here's 5 years. You can get in 5 years, play as much as you can play. And when your 5th year is up, you're done and you move on. So I just think it's, what business takes 15 or 20% of their workforce and say, hey, listen, you're not going to work for us this year. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And the other thing that people don't realize, people who aren't in the business don't realize, is that their toughest year is the year they redshirt as a student athlete, because you don't feel like you're part of the team. Everyone's traveling, you're not traveling. Everyone's practicing and getting ready for a game. You're just kind of like a practice player. You might not even know who we're playing that week. you're not as engaged as you could be. Where if you know that, hey, I know I'm going to suit up one of these games because they told me that, they're going to take me on one of the, 5 away games they have. Yeah, I'm more engaged that way. Or, hey, if I suit up for a home game, I know I have a chance of actually playing. It's different that way.
Now, I'm on board with this, but here's the only other question I have here. What about all the other sports? Okay, because basketball, you can redshirt guys too, and I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it more often now. What about everybody else? Soccer, field hockey.
Everybody. I don't know why. I don't know why we all aren't just to get taken 5 years of eligibility, because college these days takes probably a little bit over 4 years to graduate. So why not we just give them a full 5? Now, this is the way it works also. If I recruited you and you turn out not to be a good football player, which is probably very possible, I don't have to give you 5 years. I can graduate you. So I could possibly speed up some summer school and those things and say, hey, Mike Corey, love you, going to get you your degree, but we're not going to do this for 5 years. So it gives some flexibility for the coaching staff, but also you're holding up your end of the bargain with the player saying, I'm not going to get that scholarship back unless I graduate you.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to say, because, sometimes you got to make those tough decisions and you don't want to have a guy there for 5 years, unfortunately. It would almost be, I wish we could almost just redshirt everybody in terms of like this year. You know what I mean? Like, high school, I get it. You graduated. Maybe you get to go to a post-grad year or something, or you don't have to start college right away, or everybody that was in college this year, it's going to be kind of a crapshoot. Maybe they get another year. I don't know. I mean, I know it sounds crazy. It's a lot of money, but I wish everybody just kind of got this year back.
Well, what's going to be really hard is figuring out, okay, I think we're all figuring out that we're probably not going to have a fall season. Like I said, the Big Ten just has, come out. The Pac, whatever they call it, 12 or 10 right now, they're going to supposed to be there next. And I think eventually, obviously, all the lower divisions are going to be coming out and aren't going to be playing all either. Okay, so now we're going to have a spring season. Well, if we were going to have a spring season, why haven't we thought about this already? Why haven't we put something in place? I guess my frustration has been that if we would have gotten guidance from the NCAA July 1st, we could have all figured out, hey, we can test, we can't test, whatever it may be. Okay, let's think about a spring season. Well, how's the spring season look? My athletic director had a great idea. He goes, what if we started December 1st? December 1st. He goes, our kids have just left school. Now we create a bubble because there's no one on campus except for the athletes. And maybe we don't bring them back to March 1st. So now you have December and January and February where you get 3 months where you have created your own bubble because the students aren't on campus. Like right now, we have had very little issue with positive tests because we're in a bubble. There's no one on campus. We had 100 players come back. We had a total of 10 positive tests in the program, players and coaches and administrative staff. And I can tell you right now, these 22-year-olds, it's not just the sniffles. I don't want to hear one say to me, well, I only get the sniffles. I had 2 of my players for about 45 days, significant symptoms, severe headaches, coughing that wouldn't stop. Now, these guys have to go back and get heart exams before they could be put back into a protocol to play football again. So I think one of the dangers is that there's too much out there with this virus that we don't know health-wise. And I think we all look very foolish to try pushing our kids out there and say, hey, go play football, if we don't know all the possible consequences of us playing the season.
I agree. I think you gotta push it out a little bit farther. I think that was the problem. First off, they're saying like, hey, we're going to do this. And they don't even have a plan on how they're going to do this. And then now you're really in trouble. But if you could at least forecast it down the road, like you just said, hey, December 1st, at least by that point, you might be able to put a plan in place that weathers some of the storms, or has a plan A, B, and C based on your start date of way out there. But when it's so close, I agree with you. I don't even know how the heck that's supposed to work. I mean, if you were basketball, maybe that feels a little bit better because you're not supposed to start till November anyway. So maybe they should start working on their contingency plans now because it doesn't seem like
and Mike, one of the big things is we have to have basketball. I mean, that March Madness money for all the institutions, so and those guys you can put in a bit of a bubble because you have 15 players, so possibly they're living in the campus hotel. Or what I'm saying, that there's something you need to do because that March Madness money really damaged every institution in the country, Division I institution in the country, when it came to, you know, getting money from the NCAA, because that was a big loss for all of us. So there's a lot of moving parts. It's a little frustrating that we hadn't gotten guidance earlier, but that's just the nature of where college football is. There's really no college football czar that is kind of looking down through all of the, you know, all of college football saying, well, this is what we need to do. You know, the NCAA doesn't run the Division I championships. They run the FCS championship and the Division II championship and the Division III championship. But the FBS is having their own championship, and they're dealing with their own issues. So I think we're kind of I say disorganized, but there's no singular voice that speaks for college football, or there's no committee that speaks for college football. And now, you know, the MAC dropping made some other people think, well, why did the MAC drop? And you know, now the Big Ten dropping, well, a lot of smart people in the Big Ten, and wonder why they're dropping. So, you know, we don't have the same organizational structure in college football that possibly we should to handle a situation like this.
It is. It's so difficult. I always, you know, thought of that. And you've been at, you know, most of the levels too, when you're coaching as well. So you kind of know. I mean, you wish there was just another way to kind of bring everybody together under one more umbrella, but it's all about the money. Like, you know, nobody's ever going to be like the Alabama, Wisconsin, whatever. You can't. I don't know. That's hard to say that some FCS school is ever going to be something like that, you know, or the MAC even. They're in that range too. I mean, they're not going to. Everybody's so in so many different planes, you know what I mean? I don't know any other way to do it.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I've been blessed. I have you know, guys all over the country. You know, Kyle Flood's at Alabama, and Dan Lanning was my defensive back coach here 6 years ago. He's now the D coordinator at Georgia. You know, Phil Longo's at University of North Carolina. So I got guys all over the place. And some of the guys I've talked to have said to me, you'd be amazed what the major schools are doing in terms of throwing money at this problem. You know, from air filtration units to, you know, all sorts of, you know, ways to cover the face, you know, on your helmets to, you know, there's a lot that is going into this whole thing, you know. And so obviously there's an advantage at some of the Division I schools because they have greater resources. But now even those schools are starting to realize this is going to be hard. So you have someone who has a positive test and they were in a bus full of other players. Do we now quarantine that whole other bus? Or they were in a meeting with some other guys? Do we quarantine? Or they're in the weight room with 15 other players? Do we quarantine? So those are the kind of things that haven't been uniformly all completely figured out. And so that's what's a little, you know, unnerving about trying to go into a season like this is, you know, you get that test 72 hours before the game and you have a player that comes back, then also you're starting to do the contact tracing, and all of a sudden your training staff comes up and says, hey, you have like 8 guys who can't play. We play tomorrow. I know there's 8 guys who can't play. So that's the really unnerving thing about possibly going into the season was there was just so much up in the air, too many balls up in the air. Like you just didn't know like what was going to drop next in terms of the situation you're being put into. And as coaches, if you want to go play a season, let's go play with the best players. Don't tell me I have 5 offensive linemen who can't play this weekend, you know?
Well, and that's it. And you've been brilliant, I feel like, over the years of being able to weather these storms and things that have come up. I mean, you know, there's always issues if somebody got in trouble or this or that, or this guy's out and he's hurt and you're expecting to have this player and now you don't. You've always done a nice job of like altering and figuring out a way to make it happen. But when you have something this grave of a situation, right, and it's very scary and we're talking about health here, I don't know if you want to try to find ways around this one, you know what I mean? And
Right.
Also, I don't want to just talk about this the whole time either. Like you actually want to go out there and play football and see if your team can actually beat the other team without having to say, well, we couldn't because we had these 4 guys out in the corona, we couldn't practice and he wasn't here. Like that's all we're going to be talking about. I don't want to do that. Do you?
So we brought back 60 players and we quarantined them for 14 days. And then we had a player in the weight room have symptoms. And he ended up testing negative, but because he had symptoms, we quarantined the other 14 players that were in the weight room. We just got done quarantined for 14 days. So now they're quarantined for 28 days. And I said to my trainer, I go, I understand. These are the CDC guidelines. and we're going to go by the book. And these are the CDC guidelines. And we told our players, listen, if you have symptoms, don't try to hide them. It's not worth it to anybody. And I know you might have to quarantine, but let's do this thing. So there's a lot of communication that took place. And I can tell you this, I think with what's happened out there with Black Lives Matters and what's happening out there right now with the virus, players have a voice. And they deserve to have a voice. And this is their careers, and this is their futures moving forward. And they have opinions on things, and we need to listen to their voices. And that's one of the things I have with my leadership council. I say, listen, this conversation, this stays with just the 15 of us, myself and the 14 leadership council guys. And whatever you want to say, you have to feel free. You can say that, but that's the only way we can, get the right answers if we speak freely. Yeah. I just can't stand up here and drone on about different things. You need to engage me. You need to say, hey, coach, we're concerned. It was really interesting, Mike. So that one of the first leadership council meetings we had since we got back, one of my guys said, so are we going to use the same protocols as the other teams in our league? I said, right now we're not, but we're going to, or we're not going to end up playing. Good. Coach, the tests. So we're going to use the same tests as everyone else in our league. Right now we're not. We're using the gold standard. Other people in our league aren't there yet, but that's what we're going to push everyone to use, the gold standard. But that just showed me these guys are educating themselves, and that's awesome. And I want them to know that they have a voice through me, but they have to be able to communicate for me to express what their views are.
Well, and sure. And for that question, actually, it's about feeling comfortable as well, too. And if you can't give them the answer because it's not you, I'm saying that's not what's happening right now. Who's going to feel comfortable or confident to want to do this? You know what I mean? So that's another issue, unfortunately.
Well, the great thing is I work for great people who are very high moral people, and they're on the same page that I am, that, they sent these children to play for us, and we're responsible for them. And we have to understand that there's a responsibility. This isn't just winning football games. I mean, I love the competition. I guess my vehicle to mentor is through coaching football. My vehicle to teach is through coaching football. My vehicle to give them a message is through coaching football. One of the things that we've made a big push for is our kids voting. And I'm like, listen, you want change? You need to vote. And you'd be amazing how empowering it is to vote. And I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. That's not where I'm coming. That's not the angle I'm taking. I can just tell you that if you think there's change that needs to be taking place, or you think there's something that you would like to see differently or stay the same, then you need to vote. So we've made a big initiative. And I said, so hopefully someday, you can tell your grandchild or your friend or whoever. I remember the first time I voted was because my football coach told me how important and how empowering and how it makes you feel like a difference. You have a time for one story. We Ronald Talley, and we're on the tarmac about to go out and play a ball game, and Joe Biden was on the tarmac about to go out and do some fundraising when he was the vice president, and or trying to become the vice president. This was just before the election, and so he came over. I introduced him to Ronald, and he said, Senator Biden, you're going to have the Detroit vote. I guarantee you, we're going to get the Detroit vote for you. And so, long story short, Ronald comes back to me days before the election, all distraught. He goes, Coach, I never got my absentee ballot. He goes, I need to fly home. And can I fly home on Sunday to vote? I said, absolutely. And I remember him scraped up the money to fly back to Detroit. He lived in 8 Mile, right next to 7 Mile. And he casted his vote for Barack Obama and for Joe Biden. And then when Barack Obama won, the first African-American, first Black president in the history of our nation, and something that I thought I'd never see in my lifetime, something maybe he thought he would never even see in his lifetime, I remember him hugging me in that locker room, and he was crying and brought me to tears also. And I said, I saw how powerful that one vote was. And so that really made an impact on me. And I think, that made me realize how important voting was. I didn't realize back when I was 18, 19, 20 years old how important it was. That moment with Ronald that ensured to me how important, making a vote was. So anyway, that's a story I told my team. And it's funny, I always tell them different stories from my time at either Rowan University or the University of Delaware, or times earlier at Sam Houston. And those experiences are just wonderful to me. And I love that story with Ronald.
That's awesome. Yeah, you could certainly repeat that one every year to get that message across to the new players of your team every single year. I remember it a little different because I was late getting to that plane. It was a charter flight we had out of Wilmington. So I got up there late. I start walking out of the tarmac like I'm just going to get on the plane. I got all these black, pimped out SUVs. And these guys are like, whoa, where are you going, sir? I'm like, no, I'm the broadcaster. I'm getting ready to get on the plane. And I'm like, I look over, I'm like, what's going on here? And it's Biden out there talking to the whole team, like you said. So that was hilarious. I try to work on some of this stuff though now, Coach. I feel like I'm getting, to places a little bit earlier now. I'm waking up a little bit earlier. I'm eating a little bit better. I mean, it takes a long time, but like, you want to get better, right? And even during this time, right, with all that's happened, I try to take it as an opportunity as best we can to improve on stuff that you never really would have had a chance to do. How many times all we do is just bitch about not having enough time?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And again, season an opportunity. One of my guys on my coaching staff, Sadiq Haynes, during this time, he decided he was going to get, some licensing for selling stocks and those things, really more to educate him on, his own possible portfolio and those kind of things. And so it's like, we're not on the road recruiting. We have our weekends off in the summer. We were doing Zoom meetings all day long. So it wasn't like we weren't working, but like you weren't going on the road recruiting and running camps and things like that. So he took that time. But that's the kind of young man he is. A young man. He's a full grown ass man now.
Yeah.
But he's like, Coach, I saw I had a couple of free hours in the week. I was going to take advantage of those couple of free hours. So yeah, I think there's lessons for all of us to learn. And one of those lessons is that, you can make a situation whatever you want to make it. And if you decide that you're going to grow in a situation, you'll grow. If you want to just complain about it, you'll complain. So it's been interesting. I think it's been some interesting opportunities to motivate. I think it's been some interesting opportunities to try to bring a team together. One of the things that we talk a lot about, Mike, is integrity, and how we always would talk about, okay, we're in this thing together. Yeah. But we really are in this thing together, because if you go out and you don't wear a mask and you maybe go to a pool party and you're not paying attention to trying to do your best not to get this thing, you come to practice and all of a sudden spread it throughout the team. That affects every single member of the program, players, coaches, trainers. So there's a lot of trust, there's a lot of integrity that's going to go into this thing. So it's been some interesting teachable moments, and I love those teachable moments. And that's what you search for as a coach, is to take, what God has just given you, and how can you, because it's not the same standard message every single day or every single year or because situations change. We've obviously had some unique opportunities to motivate and to communicate with our players through what's going on with the protests. And I got on Zoom calls with every single one of our groups and say, listen, guys, I've not walked a single day in your shoes for my black athletes, but I want you to know I stand with you. And there has been systemic racism that's taken place in our policing. But we also do have to understand that, we are the third largest criminal justice program in the world. And we have alums, which are, it's nationwide in terms of this comment, but there's so many great police officers that deserve our respect and our prayers. And so I'm giving you two messages. One is, I stand with you. There's been systemic racism, and I have never walked a day in your shoes, but I support you. I stand with you. But also, let's pray for those police officers, because there's a lot of great police officers out there. So it was a unique opportunity for me to communicate with our players, and I got emotional because I've seen the racism firsthand. I saw it back when I was a player at Delaware. We had very few black players on our team, and I saw when we went down south how they were treated. And then I saw it, with my own players at Delaware, my own players here, my own coaches. I've seen it. So I just think that you can't shy away from those situations. You have to hit those situations head on. And I think honesty is the best policy. And I thought it was really important that I got up with my players and talked about, George Floyd dying and what happened there. And anyway, it was a pretty powerful moment, and something that as a coach, you realize that this is more than just trying to win ball games. This is, trying to help navigate your 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds through life. And a lot of them were struggling. They really were.
Well said. And we have to listen, right? I mean, that's what you do as a teacher, as a coach. You listen. If somebody has an issue in any particular area, you would listen and try to figure it out and make it better. So in my, humble, comments of that, I believe the same thing. We hear people having issues and feeling a certain way. It's our job to listen and help make it better, whether we feel like we're part of the problem or not. We just have to help make it better.
One of the things I learned, Michael, through this whole situation is that sometimes the teacher has to become the pupil. And that's something that I really worked on when this thing happened with George Floyd, is that I realized that I need to become the pupil. I had to talk to my Black coaches. I had to talk to my Black players. I just understand where they were coming from with this. And it was powerful. It really was. It was something that, was horrific and something that you wish you never had to see, but it was a game changer in terms of it was right there in front of all of us and no one could deny it. And too many times maybe those things haven't been on videotape. And so things have happened and you say, well, what really happened? Well, you saw this firsthand. So it was powerful. So it's been interesting. These last couple of months being sort of disconnected from your players a little bit because you haven't seen them. And we came back to from spring break to a campus that was shut down. And at that point, I told our coaches, we're going to do everything by Zoom. So I didn't really see my coaches for 4 months. And same thing with our players. And, Zoom calls or Zoom meetings are great, but you don't develop the same relationship because the relationships are when players stop in just to say hi. The relationships are when player pops in because something happened with grandmom or a girlfriend or a class or whatever, and you're just trying to help them navigate that situation, that moment. That's how relationships are built. They're not built this way, So, it's been great to get back on campus and see the players firsthand. And I did notice that, not that there's a disconnect, but it's taking some effort to make sure we work on our communication skills because it was just so free before. We don't let guys in our facility. We don't use our locker room, so it's really hard. It's like we meet on the field and we do all that stuff out there. So there's been some challenges, but as we talked about earlier, I think some of those challenges are also opportunities.
Yeah, Coach, you're the man. We're going to lose this in a second here because we only have less than a second to go on the Zoom. But I appreciate it, man. Great talking to you, and all the best down there.